We are joined by my guys, and guys, it's a sad one. The last roundtable of the year. But I'm glad that you could join us. No Frankie Cardicelli, but Frankie's in our hearts.
Yeah. He's had a morning and a half.
Frankie is in our hearts, and this next hour, I've been talking about the report from Chris Haynes and how it seemed so innocent at first, but when you actually listen to everything that he said in that, minute and 30 seconds, there were a lot of different things that he wanted to make very clear, and we know that you got to get your information from someone. He goes out on NBA TV, and he says a couple of things. He says that Keon has basically taken Malik's spot in the rotation. He says that they are looking to move Malik Monk, and they are looking for somebody that is young and athletic. And a lot of people were chiming in saying, isn't Malik young and athletic? They're looking for one of those 6'8", 6'9"ers. That's what they're looking for. So, yeah, I mean, it was national treasure to me because there were so many different avenues that I felt like we could take this thing. But Chris, I mean, initially you hear it and it's okay. Thank you, Chris Haynes. We already knew that, but I do think there was a little bit more to it. And I'm just going to ask you straight up, maybe not literally as in he'll never be on the floor again, but are we done seeing Malik Monk play substantial minutes for the Sacramento Kings?
I don't know. I candidly haven't heard the full Chris Haynes audio yet, so maybe hearing that in full will change my opinion. But I think if you would have asked me like 2 weeks ago about Keon Ellis, I might have said yes or something like that. I'm more so just saying I think it's pretty fluid right now, and I think Malik is definitely being shopped right now, but he was also shopped in the preseason and everything before that. I just have a tough time saying definitely yes, he's not going to come back because he is still young and athletic, and I still see a world in which he makes sense if he just is somebody who's one of the leftover guys. I wouldn't imagine he's going to be because, he seems to be more tradable or easily tradable than a guy like Zack LaVine or Domantas Sabonis or maybe even DeMar DeRozan, so maybe he is the most likely to get traded, but I could see it if he does somehow make it past the February 15th trade deadline and he's still in Sacramento. I feel like there's a world in which this is all at some point water under the bridge, and it's, hey, we explored it at that time. It didn't happen, and we're happy to have you moving forward. But I just have a tough time believing that it's truly done for Malik, but it very well could be.
Yeah, let's hear Ramsey.
So let me bring up Malik Monk. He's somebody right now who has fell out of the rotation for the Sacramento Kings. They're going with Keon Ellis as that guard. They have a logjam at the guard spot, and so sources have informed me that Malik Monk has been made available for a trade. And so the Sacramento Kings, they're looking to get younger and they're looking to get more athletic. So Malik Monk is somebody who plays extremely hard. He's a very dynamic player, one of the best 6 men we've had in this league. So he presents a ton of value. It's just a logjam there with the Sacramento, but I was told he is available for a trade.
So I don't feel
we knew.
Different. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that to me doesn't feel like anything new at all. That to me sounds like he's just literally saying, as of right now, Keon in rotation, Malik not. Again, like 2 weeks ago, it was the complete inverse of that. And so,
well, then why are they? Yeah. You know how this works, though, right? Who is? I'm not saying who, but they're doing this for. Is it just who are they reminding?
I think it's. I don't know if you've ever posted anything on like Facebook Market or Craigslist or anything. Sometimes you got to repost things. Yeah. Sometimes you put things up and you don't get the right offers, and you're like, "Hey, like brand new wicker.
It's still here.
Outdoor set.
Yeah, it's still. I got
$200 OBO or best offer.
Yeah. Come on. What did you think, Brenden? Am I doing too much with this?
No, I mean I get why you're talking about.
Gotta get Brendan's mic going. But I don't know. My initial thought. Try now, Brenden.
Yo, hello.
There we go.
Hello. I mean, I think that it was a lot of similar wording to what we hear from the Kings all the time. Like, to me, when you hear logjam right away. I'm like, okay, this is exactly
Yeah.
the wording that Doug Christie has been using, And so I don't think it's anything new. You just read out the Siegel reporting before we hopped on. He said Malik's been available since, June, July? Like, I think that's been a known thing. To the point of the rotation, though, it does feel like it's very much picking one or the other. And I don't personally think that needs to be the case for what it's worth. I look at, Russ playing 40 minutes, take it, it's an overtime game. DeMar playing 38, and you're like, all right, we could just, cut off 5 from each of these guys and distribute it a little bit.
Yeah.
Asked Doug Christie about that, and he's saying it's not a participation sport. We're trying to win games.
That's crazy.
Yeah, he's like, I'm not, because I think I worded it.
As you're playing 37-year-old veterans, this isn't a participation sport.
I think I worded it a little bit like, do you think about cutting everybody's minutes essentially and letting everybody get run? And that was the response to that.
But and he hadn't put in. The only 2 people he put on ice before is Keon and Malik. Nobody else has been put on ice like that. I mean, and I'm not counting Neek because Neek's a rookie.
Yeah.
But nobody else has been, hey, it's just how it goes. And maybe this is just trial by fire. He's trying out something new instead of, trying to give everybody a little bit of the mix. A 9, it was essentially between, and the crazy part was, hey, Keon has leapfrogged him. Keon played 9 minutes.
Dude, and my whole thing is that we've had this exact conversation with Keon a lot. Malik is a lot better player than Keon, to be honest, just straight up. And they do things differently for sure, but I think it's even more ridiculous to not play Malik than it is Keon.
Yeah.
And so I think Malik's going to end up back in the rotation. We saw it last game, right? For 5 minutes, take it for what you will. But, I think that Malik will go back out there because from what we've seen so far, I bet you there's going to be an instance where Keon's not cutting it. And so then we're going to go back in the other direction, and it wouldn't surprise me if we're sort of flopping back and forth throughout this a little bit because that's what it feels like.
But think about it, I think what's weird to me, and I know the Kings have been brought up time and time again because they're just one of those teams where everyone's waiting for them to just move forward. But we're not hearing, Chris Haynes is not reporting on every roster or every rotation update for other teams. Hey, here's an update. He's still available, and he just lost. And by the way, I saw a text come through about this. What type of backwards, I'm not going to say backwards, but hey, by the way, Malik's still available, and he just got Wally pipped by Keon.
Right.
Who does, what?
Right.
Backwards.
What does that solve?
No, I don't get it. It doesn't make sense to me, right? If you're going to shop somebody, then you should probably showcase them. I understand,
Or don't tell people, or don't tell give
people,
Chris Haynes information.
Right.
Hey, highlight the fact that Malik is on the bench.
Right. No, that's a solid point too. Yeah, not really any of it makes sense, and it's really perplexing with how they're attacking this portion of the season because it does feel like, and the thing is, Doug has been saying. That we're going to cut down those veteran minutes. We're going to cut down. You're not going to see DeMar playing 37 minutes, Russ playing 40. And whatever, overtime definitely does play a factor into that. But at some point, that's just got to change. It just can't be an excuse because at some point you're doing it to yourself. And I don't know. It's a 7-win or what? Do they have 8 wins now?
7.
I think they're at 7.
I can't keep
7
track,
and 22.
You ain't got to count high.
Why, what are it just doesn't make sense as to what is the reasoning for and maybe it's easy to say with hindsight being 2020, but what's the reason for going all out in a game like that? It's okay. In my opinion, you fought really hard against Houston. The young guys played well. It was a moral victory at that point.
I'm
not saying tank that game.
No. I would disagree with you just for that game because I did see somebody say every tanking season needs some feel-good moments.
Yes,
that one is
it
cool.
I don't have a problem. The fan base needs that too.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with anything they did in that game. But your larger point is definitely received. I think I think the main issue was this. You're closing the game, and again, it just can't be what you typically do. Because the main issue was this, and I know a Westbrook fan's going to find this and get mad at me, but it's very simple. If you are closing the game with both of your point guards, that means no 2 is playing. So Keon is not playing, Malik is not playing, and I don't necessarily think Neek is playing because then you have Schroeder, Westbrook, Keegan, whoever's playing the 4, so I guess DeMar, and Maxime. So the bigger issue to me was running both of your point guards at the same time, and you're closing the game, I get it, but that is if you're not allowing Malik or Keon, because the whole thing is who's rotating in with Zack LaVine out. Well, that's why they're not getting minutes, because Doug just decided in that moment, Doug decided to close with the vets, right? And then it went into overtime, so he kept the vets, because you don't normally sub in overtime unless it's, the Rockets did, and it ended up.
Or Max fouls out.
Yeah, exactly. The Rockets did, and Tari Eason kind of blew it. So that is, I think that's the bigger issue. You cannot have both those guys on the floor. That can't be a thing. That's your crutch. It's a crutch for Doug. And I get it. Schroeder is getting paid $15 million. Russ is a future Hall of Famer, and Russ is the starter. But that's a crutch, and if you do that, Neek Neek got his minutes against the Rockets, but
Neek did play a lot.
Neek is not going to get his minutes, and Malik, who they clearly don't, number one, they just don't care about, is not going to get his minutes, but Keon is the main one. Oh, Keon leapfrog, okay, but there's no leapfrog because you're not running a 2.
Right. Yeah, I think that I can't really fault him for last game doing that.
I don't either.
Feel like,
I don't either.
I think that those guys were playing well. You're going to roll with that. And again, like we talked about last week, like Doug's job is to go out there and win games.
Mm-hmm.
And so I feel like I can only fault it to a certain extent, but I definitely see the logic in what you're saying. Like running those guys the extent that they do. I also think that that's where, when you talk about Malik's minutes, like, sure, he doesn't want to be a point guard. Like, he has the capability to do it. We saw it last year, and there are moments where they look really good doing that. And it's probably, I wonder how much it has to do with Domas being out. I think Malik plays really well off of Domas and vice versa. And so maybe if Domas comes back at some point, that would help his production a little bit out there. But yeah, I think that it's just kind of a weird spot for Doug to be in, and for reasons that we've talked about plenty, but not playing Malik is crazy, man.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder,
and
if there's other
proclamation
things
about it.
Right. Like it's a very weird way to do it, that if you're not playing our brand of basketball, you're not playing hard, then you're not going to be out there. And he talks about how our defense has looked a lot better over the last 3 games. Funnily enough, their defense is better with Malik on than with him off. And it's actually worse with Keon on the floor than when he's off the floor. All of Keon's on-off numbers, they are notably better when Keon is off the floor rather than on. I'm just saying it's kind of crazy.
We're trying to get a protected first-round pick.
I'm just saying.
Or don't connect. We're trying to get
I've
something.
come around to the idea of him getting a first, by the way, of the Kings getting a first for him. But
it's going to be tough. But.
Yeah. But no, it's just a weird spot to be in. And when a guy of Malik's caliber is not playing, I think it's very reasonable to be like, okay, is there other things going on here?
Well, there are. And then you have Brett Siegel saying there's no interest in Malik this morning in his report. You got Chris Haynes saying, well, he didn't say that there was interest. He said that Malik Monk is available, and this is what the Kings are looking for. And I took what Chris Haynes said about the Kings looking for somebody young and athletic just as what they're looking for, period. Yeah. I think that could be for Keon. I don't think it's necessarily only for Malik. That's just what they're looking for.
Scott mentioned that in his intro presser.
Yeah, that's just what they're looking for, period. Yeah, so did Monty. So that's just what they're looking for, period. And, at this point in time, that's why I asked, is this the last time we've kind of seen Malik play substantial minutes? Because I just don't – what do you do if you're Malik Monk, right? Hey, Coach, I made the joke yesterday, Chris. Is this Coach Carter? Right? Hey, Coach, I've been working on sliding my feet. What? You're 27. You're going to run some liners? What are you going to do?
He does have a lot of my bad moments on defense. I don't know if you remember, Buddy Hield was the king of putting my hand up, my bad.
It's cooked. It's cooked then. You're not there's no time.
Well, at some
Malik's
point,
been practicing much better. Here's some minutes.
Well, at some point he's going to get back out there, probably because Keon isn't cutting it. Mm-hmm. And are you going to show some progress
played 9
in that
minutes
way?
last game.
I know, it's
Zack
not a
Lavine's
lot.
Gonna come back.
Right.
It's over.
It might be. I just feel like, again, my theory is more based on just the numbers game working out in his favor, that Schroeder gets traded first, that Russ gets dealt somewhere else, DeRozan gets dealt somewhere else, and he just inevitably kind of comes back. And again, maybe he is just the next one in that list. Maybe this could, to your point, this could just be the sign that Malik is first on the list. As we're trying to wonder who it is, again, Malik does, if we're saying who are the tradable contracts, Keon, you can have a separate conversation about trying to maximize the value and what you're going to do that. DeRozan, contract, which location is best for him. LaVine, obviously, tons of money. Maybe Schroeder, you can argue, is an easy deal. But Malik is the one that just makes the cleanest, most sense. He goes to a lot of different teams, and it makes sense. A lot of teams probably have varying levels of interest in him. But, it just, to me, feels like, for I guess everything's Brenden saying is it just – if at some point the Kings are going to revert to, okay, this is no longer any form of showcasing, this is just like, this is our team and this is what we're running out, it feels like Malik Monk, if he is on the roster, should be playing in there because he's just too talented. And if at the end of the day, you're trying to win games or you're trying to run coherent offense, even the numbers are showing it, he's helping you be a better basketball team. And so it's just a matter of, it's the question we continue to come in here and ask is, what direction, what goal, what are they trying to accomplish this season? We still really don't have any clear direction that they've given us.
Would you ask a question to Doug that is kind of formed around, because I don't necessarily know how much the Kings get down.
You can ask him, by the way.
Well, I've been running around.
Okay.
But been, as far as the analytics are concerned, is there somebody that would form a question that says, hey, Doug, understand where you're going with some of the high-level numbers that we're seeing actually shows that the team might be better with Malik playing? What would you say to that, right? What do you think he would say?
He would probably point to the last 3 games. We want to fully go, play into like me being Doug Christie here. It's I think that Malik does a lot of good things out there for us when he's out there. He knows the situation, and we just got a logjam going on right now. And if you look at our last 3 games, we've actually played a lot better defensively. And maybe, I think 3 might be a little bit kind if you go look at 135 that Portland put up or something. Right. But then they held Portland in 98. Is it 125, I think, in overtime against a pretty good Houston
team?
Portland
is 10-16, by the way.
This is true. The Kings are 7-22. Right.
They got 2 wins against the Kings, but they're
better than the Kings.
1.5.
Yeah. It's just one of those that I don't feel like you're going to get Doug to be like, we're better with Malik.
Yeah, it's just the eye test.
Like we're trying to get more size out there defensively. I think that's why you see. It doesn't make sense, but that's why you see Dario Saric out there for the 8 minutes or whatever he played the other day. Earlier in the year, I think we saw a lot more of DeMar playing the 4, Zach playing the 4, and that's where you get more of the 3 other guards out there with them, and it feels like they've really gone away from that. Like Precious was playing the 5 not that long ago, right? He was their backup 5, and now they're bringing in Dylan on his 2-way deal. That way Precious can remain at the 4 and Keegan more at the 3. And so I think they're trying to go with larger size lineups.
Yeah.
And that's where some of these guards are getting cut out even more so than before.
Yeah, this is from Brett Siegel. It was more so about Kuminga, but he ends it saying, the Warriors continue to signal that they don't want Malik Monk, who has been made available in trade talks since July. There is virtually no interest in Monk around the league because of his contract, which, the crazy thing is about this whole contract thing, it's a bad contract. You're already paying him. So you might as well play him just because it's viewed as a bad contract. Right. Y'all the ones y'all the ones gave him the contract.
Zach LaVine's viewed as a bad contract. It's not stopping them from playing him.
No. So the other
Someone will trade for him.
The other guy, it ain't going to be the Bucks.
Got to find another Kings out there somewhere.
The other thing I wanted to talk about, Chris, is somebody that we don't talk about at all, and I've kind of put him in the Harrison Barnes category. Last season, we spent so much time when we were fighting with Legend of Winning about
the Trey Lyles movement.
About the Trey Lyles movement, me deleting my tweet and him calling me out. All this stuff.
I just want to hear from him about snacks.
Exactly. All that stuff coming out from DeMar DeRozan to the bench, right? We have since moved forward, and he's not going to come off the bench.
Right.
But I feel like we're in this Harrison Barnes spot where nobody and he's been playing well. It's not about him. So has Russell Westbrook. But I feel like he is a bit bigger. You play him at the 3 and the 4. But I feel like we've just given up on any idea that DeMar DeRozan has to play less minutes. He doesn't get asked about it. We keeps on saying the vets. He keeps running DeMar out there the most. And I just feel like I don't even talk about it anymore because Doug's just he's just the one guy because he's not a guard, even though he was a 2 guard for majority of his career, that we just don't talk about it anymore.
Yeah, I mean, it's a solid point. I think it's also like a little bit of plugging holes, and you can only complain about so many things at once, and it's just the one that just continues to leak. But it is pretty interesting. But it is, I think, also exactly what you said in your question. Like, I think you kind of answered your own question. It's the fact that he just by default, unless. Here's the interesting thing. I was just talking with Angie down the hallway. Like, Doug McDermott's not getting any minutes. And so, like, that's the other alternative is, I guess, if you're talking about a guy who can take some forward minutes, unless they want to get a little weird, maybe they could play Keon more at that 3 spot. But I don't have a good answer for it. It doesn't make sense to me. I wouldn't be doing it. I mean, I think DeMar should be playing somewhere around 28 to 32 minutes. But I think it's just a politics thing. I really do. I think Doug, clearly still to Doug's credit, does have the locker room. And I think a large part of that is because he's playing the veterans so much. And so those guys haven't given up and haven't started bad-mouthing what's going on. And they're not on the, how many guys this season has said Russell Westbrook growing up was my Neek, I've heard say it. Drew Eubanks said, like, if Russell Westbrook isn't playing and he's sitting on the sideline and he's out here saying, like, I don't know why I came to this sorry team anyway. Like, y'all ain't doing nothing. Y'all ain't playing me. This is why that's going to affect those guys. And so I think that would, I guess, if I had to give an answer, that would probably be the best answer I have. Is it's merely a respect thing. And funny that, again, I had not heard Doug say not a participation sport, but I do kind of feel like he is just playing those guys out of respect and pretty much because he doesn't want to lose the locker room.
Yeah, I do wonder if at the end of the day this is more so about really nobody on the team right now. They keep saying Neek Clifford and Keegan, and that's really more so about if there was anyone that would be untouchable, it would be them. Carmichael Davis said multiple times, nobody is untouchable. I do wonder if this whole exercise for us is futile because Scott Perry doesn't really have any interest. Like when we talk about getting Keon more time, hey, Keon is who he is. We're going to either trade him and then we're going to extend. Like there's no point, like going back to the center fielder that I was talking about my junior year, the juice is not worth the squeeze to tick off any of these guys when, hey, as long as we make sure Neek is getting time and Neek, Maxime, that just worked out because of DeMontis Sabonis.
I feel like Dylan Cardwell has earned some.
Dylan Cardwell, but going into the season, who Scott Perry has prioritized, hey, we need these guys to get minutes. Neek is getting his minutes, and I don't know how much they care about Keon getting. They care now because it's been talked about around the league. Why isn't Keon playing? And it's time to trade him, but they don't care if Malik plays or not, right? So I guess maybe us talking about these guys getting less minutes, well, for who? Keon and Neek. That's it. Malik would be out the door if it was up to them.
Yeah, we can bring up the Devin Carter of it all.
I would bring up Devin Carter, but he would be out the door too. Balling out at the G League Showcase. They don't care.
Yeah.
They don't seem to.
Yeah, I think for the most part that, like, when it comes to Malik, the contract not being viewed very highly right now, it's a funny thing in hindsight, by the way, because at the time of him signing that, everybody thought he was about to leave, right? It was all pointing towards he's probably going to go to Orlando, maybe Detroit. Orlando ends up spending money on KCP, and there was not more money out there for Malik Monk, like people thought there was going to be at the time. And so you're seeing that play out now, that nobody wanted to give it to him then. They don't really want to do it now. But that value will get easier to move as more years come off of it,
agreed.
And so there's no hurry with Malik. With Keon, I also don't think it really matters what he does this season, to be honest. I think everybody knows what Keon is. A thing I thought of yesterday, actually, when looking at some of the Keon and Malik numbers is, remember when Keon first got drafted, there was... He obviously went undrafted, and there was a report that he was listed taller than he actually was at Bama, right? And then got, combine. People are like, oh, he's actually shorter. I thought that's why he fell, and I asked him about it. And he said that he actually thought it was because of the NBA Combine scrimmages. And he was like, that's a style of basketball that does not cater to my play. Everybody's out there trying to get their own and just, essentially playing their own brand of basketball. And I feel like that's what the Kings are right now. They are essentially playing the same basketball that you see at the NBA Combine scrimmages. It's everybody trying to show off on their own. And that's not a situation that's very conducive to Keon's style of play. I think teams around the league know that. And you see it in all these reportings, right? It comes out like, man, we like Keon. I don't get why he's not playing. Like, I think that his value will be fine no matter how the rest of this season goes. And you can play it patient a little bit with Malik. And you got time. You got 2.5 years, and eventually that contract will get easier to stomach from some other teams.
When we return, there's another guy that is not viewed in the best light because of his contract, but I want to talk about his minutes on the Kings. More on South coming up. And we are here with Chris Watkins and Brenden Nunes. And the main thing, guys, I feel like this is somebody that we haven't talked about a lot. We did have that report from Brett Siegel, and it was about not much has changed when it comes to Zack Lavine and the Bucks. The Sacramento Kings have made it known that everyone on their roster, other than Keegan Murray and Nick Clifford, are available in trade talks. Milwaukee has done extensive scouting on the possibility of adding Lavine since the trade deadline last season. But he continues on to say the Bucks and Zack Lavine, that contract is just tough, right? It's just going to be tough for them to maneuver, which we all already knew, because when that came out, I thought they're really going to trade Kyle Kuzma and Bobby Portis for Zack Lavine. That doesn't make a ton of sense. So as far as Zack Lavine is concerned, we're having all these conversations about accountability and defense and all of this. Why I was kind of worried, I should say, about Doug going down this path of accountability is that people are going to call you out if you don't hold that standard to everyone. Now, he has sat Zack Lavine before, right? Fourth quarters and things like that. But I do wonder where Zack Lavine now fits if he comes back. Could this get even squirrelier for Zack Lavine, who I guess is a little bit better at defense than Malik, and he is a better player, but there are times where I don't want to say he looks disengaged, but he kind of does, and I don't know where this thing goes. Malik is one thing, that's a bad contract, it's the 3 years, but then you have Zack Lavine, who is getting paid a lot more money, and we understand the basketball politics. I don't know what kind of happens when Zack Lavine returns with this new emphasis on defense, and Doug has always said scoring will just figure itself out. But I don't really know what the deal is and where this thing is going when Zack Lavine does return.
I think this is where there is kind of the politics of you traded your franchise player for this guy. And it'd be really hard to imagine. I think it's a reasonable conversation. It's just I struggle to imagine a scenario where Zach isn't out there playing 30-plus minutes every single night. Like he's still a guy that can have those nights like he did in Miami where he had, a 50 ball or something like that. And so he's still capable of all that stuff. I think that it's hard to not roll the guy that you traded your franchise player for out there. And I don't even know how much it's about rekindling value. I think there could be parts of that. Last year was maybe the best year of his career. And so he's been hyper efficient. It's just people know the flaws that exist already. And I don't know that you're changing the perspective of anybody, but I do think you got to try to get what you can out of the guy that you're paying $50 million to.
Yeah. Where are you at with this, Chris?
It's a tough situation because it just feels like if anybody's taking him off of our hands, like it's a blessing, like it's a Christmas miracle. And so I think, it's obviously, while he's on the team, it's exactly what Brenden said. I think it's just the I'll say unfortunate reality that he's just going to play. If he's here, he's going to play. And there's not really much getting around it. And, maybe some point if he's here for if he just plays out his contract, maybe they get to the resignment where he is playing limited minutes or just not the guaranteed 35-plus minutes. But, if he doesn't go to Milwaukee, it feels like it's really hard to find the place where they would be willing to make that risk because it is just a massive – anytime you're talking about it's either Zack LaVine or Michael Porter Jr., you're not negotiating from a position. I literally read a story this morning that said if Michael Porter Jr. didn't wear this special ankle brace that he's the only player in the league to wear, he couldn't pick up his foot. Like I have it right in front of me here. He said, I'm still not fully pain-free. He says the brace is also known as an ankle foot what is this? I'm sorry, an AFO, an ankle foot orthosis.
Is this from back in the day?
No, this is current. This article just dropped like this week. He said, "quote It isn't easy to play with, and it severely restricts his natural movement, making the way he's able to defend quick forwards more impressive. If he didn't have it, he'd literally trip over himself because he wouldn't be able to pull up his foot when running. The AFO is critical in aiding that particular movement, also known as dorsal flexion." So there you go. Like, more so saying, again, that's Michael Porter Jr.'s situation. Yeah. Those are the two guys that Milwaukee is talking about bringing in. And, I guess that reading that made me feel better about maybe Milwaukee choosing Zack LaVine.
He's $10 million cheaper.
There's no guarantee. And there's also no guarantee that they're going to pull the trigger because, like you said, they're throwing out Bobby Portis and who was the other?
Kuzma.
And Kuzma. Like, I think the Kings fans especially, I think, would be really happy with that return. And it feels like if you're Milwaukee, that should raise some eyebrows. If the other side is really happy with their return and more so really happy to get off Zack LaVine, you should probably just keep what you got.
I also just find it hilarious that this is the second instance. Like, the only reason Milwaukee is even interested is because they are at like peak desperate times, right? This is their last-ditch effort of Giannis is that where this all comes to a head is, does he agree to an extension this offseason, right? And maybe they'll move him in the middle of the year, but it feels like they probably have this year to try and convince him one last time to stay, right? And every time that this has come up in the past, they've done a move, right? Whether it's Damian Lillard, Drew Holiday, Miles Turner this last offseason. Like, it seems like they constantly are trying to do things to keep him around. And I just find it really ironic that the only other time Zack LaVine was actually movable in a trade was because the Sacramento Kings were super desperate. Yeah. And your scenario that you talked about of like, hey, when you're looking at the trade and the other team's super hyped to get it back, that's exactly what happened with Chicago, San Antonio. You know what I mean? Like, this is the reality of Zack LaVine's value around the league.
Yeah, and I do wonder, I mean, even for me with the Michael Porter Jr. thing, he is a little bit cheaper. And for the Bucks to even try to do a deal with the Nets, they don't have any first-round picks besides that one. I think it's 2032 or something like that.
Which, why would you trade that?
What, you're not going to trade that, and neither Bobby Portis nor nor Kyle Kuzma are expiring. So I don't know why the Nets would want that. They don't. Right. I don't think so, unless the Nets, we saw the Jazz are saying, hey, we're not going to stink too much longer. I think the Nets are pretty firm in the stink still. Yeah. So I don't necessarily know why they would trade for guys like that unless you think they're going to help you lose.
Or they just try and flip it later.
Right. And
semi-valuable
that's
pieces.
What they've done before with Cam Thomas, and they did with Mikal Bridges. So they're just kind of, I guess, almost pushing their timeline further down, and they stay out of trouble with the whole tanking stuff. And hey, we're making moves. So it's possible it ain't going to happen, next year because they're not expiring. So then I guess you rehab their value for a year, and then somebody goes and gets a Kuzma, or somebody goes and gets a Bobby Portis. So, and I think Bobby Portis still has a decent amount of value around the league. But yeah, the Zack LaVine thing to me is going to be fascinating when he comes back, because I know he has shown a lot of effort, and that's where Doug does have a little bit of leeway. It's not just about, well, Russell Westbrook turned the ball over 3 times in the first half. Well, he was doing this. He can make his own rules, but that doesn't necessarily mean that other people aren't going to kind of call him out for those said rules, right? It just that's where it is. And then the DeMar part of it, I mean, again, he's just going to say, well, we thought he was doing X and Y, and not to bring back the Malik thing, but yeah, I mean, there wasn't anything, like, we know Keon whacked Reed Shepherd, or didn't whack, but grazed Reed Shepherd enough that Doug thought it was a bad foul and they brought him out. That was X happened, so Y result. We didn't really have an X-Y result for Malik Monk. I think there are going to be situations with Zack LaVine where there's not an X and Y result. But to your point, Brenden, that's just one that you probably just wear. You probably just say, hey, Doug, the brother got to get 30 a night. You know what I mean? We know Jeff Teague, the 520 pot. They'll tell you, hey, he needs to get 30. That's just what it is.
Or else why is he out there, to be honest, right? Like, yeah, I mean.
No, I'm saying 30 minutes a night.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not saying I wish you would get 30 points, but.
Right.
Hey,
shooting for 30, like yes, give him the minutes and hey, go out there and score. That's what you're here for. It's not the most conducive to the other guys out there, but to your, there wasn't an X that led to Y. The X is kind of just like his career, to be honest. There's no one specific moment, but I think it's been proven over time. And shoot, Scott Perry said it on his own podcast before all this happened, that or BJ Armstrong, that he hasn't proven to be a winning player.
Yeah.
And we're seeing that play out. Chris, it may have been you that pointed this out to me of when he doesn't have the ball in his hands, what else is he doing?
That was Biederman, actually.
Yeah, the other Chris. The better Chris.
Yeah, frankly.
Yeah. And so it's hard to figure out how Zach is benefiting his teammates a lot of times out there, to be honest, and being able to just score obviously is a way of doing that. But Domas's greatest skill, and they're polar opposite players, but Domas's greatest skill is making his teammates better, right?
Yeah.
Even DeMar has become a solid passer to this point in his career, and I think that I have a lot more faith when DeMar gets doubled that he's going to make the right decision with the ball in his hands than Zach, and so I think that there is just a long record here of. I guess I'm just leaning into the winning player thing and the lack thereof with Zach.
Alan, I'm curious if you would attach, because as we were to essentially force Milwaukee's hand, would you throw in a first-round pick for Zach? And I know it's been a hot-button topic, but I am more than ever starting to feel like it would be worth the squeeze to just get out of him, and especially if you get a guy like Bobby Portis and Kyle Kuzma, two guys that could maybe be usable or flipped elsewhere.
Protected.
I would be a lot more willing to do it, especially if it is truly Brooklyn has an offer, Sacramento has an offer, Milwaukee's pretty split either way, and honestly, there could be a third option of just doing nothing.
Yeah.
I would want to try and incentivize Milwaukee to take that pick, to take Zack LaVine off of my hands as much as possible, because I think if you're the Kings, it just feels like as long as Sabonis and LaVine are going to be hunkered down with their contracts, you're just never going to get the ball rolling on what it is you truly want to do. And so it feels like addition by subtraction. And I feel like everything is risk management. I think getting Zach off would, to Brendan's point too, of Sabonis makes his teammates better. It just feels like if you want to get the wheels going on this thing at some point, getting Zack LaVine off the roster is the quickest way to make people start to feel good too. At some point too, it's about the fans not feeling great about their team.
Yeah, it's a couple years where you are, we'll talk about it on the other side, but a couple years where you get an opportunity to say, hey, Sabonis, here's some more size. You get Keegan back to the 3. I'll give my full answer in our last segment. Now, Sactown Sports. And then at 1 o'clock, we're going over the NFL slate and the NBA slate over this Christmas break that we are about to get into. But first, I wanted to answer your question, Chris. Would I move a first for Zack LaVine? So it would be Zack LaVine and a first, protected, gotta be, right?
Could be whatever you want it to be.
Okay.
I don't necessarily see why it has to be protected. I mean, if I'm Milwaukee, I'm saying how bad do you want to get out of him?
And I'm saying enough that it's semi-protected.
There you go.
And so here's my thing. Semi-protected Zack LaVine, you get Bobby Portis, who I know that we've kind of talked about Bobby Portis not being the Bobby Portis of old, right? He's 30 years old. He's got three more years, so 2 more years after this at $13.4 million, and then you get Kyle Kuzma at 2 more years. But honestly, you're doing this as almost an ode to Domantas Sabonis, right? They both fit Domantas Sabonis' timeline. The whole team would just make more sense. You get 2 guys that can play the forward position. You get Keegan back to the 3, and you could keep Dennis Schroeder. You can re-sign Russell Westbrook, whatever you want to do. It just makes more sense. So initially I was going to tell you no, and I was going to say no because, Bobby Marks, when he put out his article last week about the assets, he's already calling Zack LaVine an expiring contract. He's already looking ahead in how he's kind of viewed. And I think Zack LaVine has an expiring contract, which is what he will be next season. I'm just not really that opposed to holding on to him. So my initial thought was to say no, but I more so look at this, if it's a protected first, definitely not 2026, because it ain't going to be 2026.
Right.
But
There's also the Minnesota pick, 2031.
Yeah. I think this would be a situation where you
San
give
Antonio picks as well.
Yeah, and again, they never talk about Domantas Sabonis, so I don't know how much they care about Domantas Sabonis.
Yep.
But assuming they do care about somebody they're paying $45 million to, you give him 3 years and say, hey, buddy, this is what it is. I don't know. I know he's eligible for an extension this offseason, so that's going to be
Sabonis?
pretty. Yes.
Oh, let's not talk about
Well, I'm just saying it's going to be spicy. It's
Okay.
going to be spicy.
I hope not.
But you do this deal and you say, hey, man, this is kind of the swan song here. We got, Dennis. We got. You would have to move on from DeMar because then you'd have a weird forward log jam. So you would probably move on from DeMar at the end of the season. You go into the next season with what? It would be Keegan. Bobby Portis would maybe start. I don't know, or
Potentially,
Kyle
yeah.
Kuzma.
Yeah.
Right, one of them
one
will
of them is
start,
starting.
and then you get Domantas Sabonis, and then you would still have Dennis Schroeder and whoever you want to fit in there. It could be Neek, it could be someone.
They might get 30 wins. Might mess around and get 30 wins.
Yeah, I mean, or you just don't do it and you let Zach LaVine just expire. That I'm not super pressed to move on from Zach LaVine.
Another year of this is a year and a half of this.
It
is
wouldn't
crazy.
be this though. Exactly.
I feel like it would be. It would just be people more resigned. Like I can't see it being better.
Is your worry that this is a bad environment for the young players to come in and all that, and just
No,
I
not
mean the
necessarily.
viewership of all this is the
I just think it's
experience
really,
of,
really terribly, tragically bad.
yeah.
And I think you at least become a professional basketball team if in that swap because of
Right.
even just like Alan said, just things making more sense. Like I think you can say 30 wins or whatever, but I
Right.
think you're actually like an NBA basketball team. But again, this all comes down to I don't know what the Kings' goal is truly.
That's what I was
Because
going
I
to go
think
to.
they are again more competitive. Like I could imagine you maybe make a 2026 draft pick and maybe a one good free agency signing. I don't think it would be crazy to say we're right back in the play-in conversation next year, and who
Right.
knows where that leads. But
Trade for one of those point guards.
Yeah.
Like you could be right back in it.
It's a mini double down where you're adding two guys. They're on the same timeline with Domantas Sabonis. Either you're better or you're not.
it's a snow globe shape.
Yes,
That's what I think.
It's either you're better or you're not. I think to Chris's point, you won't be better as presently constructed.
Right.
But either way, I do think next season, even if they hold on to Zach LaVine, my argument is that it will look different because I do think DeMar will be gone, and there's a chance that Malik is gone too.
Sure, yeah.
So I just think it's not going to be.
That's
I
fair.
just don't see it being this bad either way.
I
even
also wonder.
with Zach LaVine.
Sorry, last thing. I also wonder if you made the point. If this is the best you could get for Zach LaVine. You said
Yeah.
like you want to hold on to Zach because maybe the expiring contract. I can't imagine even next year in an expiring contract you're going to get as good as those two players.
If he goes
Now, granted,
back
you
to
might get
Chicago,
assets
if he goes back to
potentially,
what he did in that season,
Right.
but he hasn't been that this season.
right. Well, even then, I don't know if he would. Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know, but I think I'd be willing to just wait it out.
Sure.
I think.
I don't think there's a right answer.
If you want to, it
wanna
comes
hold on
back
to
to
those
Sabonis.
picks, too.
It comes back to Sabonis. If you
Right.
want to give Sabonis an opportunity, even if a small one, then you do it.
Right. Are
If
we
you-
fully resetting or
Yeah.
not?
If you
Right?
don't
Like,
care about Sabonis, then don't do it. And he's probably going to ask out. But that's what I said last week. He's probably going to ask out.
Yeah.
So I do it. If my goal is to make Sabonis happy and put him in a competitive spot, I do it. If I don't care, which kind of signals that they don't, I don't do it.
Yeah.
I just let Zach expire.
Yeah, I would. I'm a hard no for what it's worth, but I think that it's dependent on what Chris said. What do the Kings want here? Is the goal to eventually win a championship, or are you just trying to get back to relevancy? Because there are, like, if your goal is a championship, then you can stomach another year of being booty. Like, as much as it's not fun, and you probably don't want to this extent, but, like, if that's your goal, that's the process, And sure, you could try to fast track. You could go at LaMelo Ball, Darius Garland, and say you get a top 5 pick this year. All of a sudden, it's AJ DeBonsa, Darius Garland, Malik Monk, Keegan Murray, Domantas Sabonis. It's like, hey, that's kind of something.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But I still think that you don't. Maybe you're getting your number one in that scenario, but I don't think selling off future draft capital for the sake of moving on from a guy that is just going to be gone next year anyway. Not next year, but the following season. And it's probably a lot easier when he's an expiring to be like, hey, bro, like, there's a month till the trade deadline. Let's just sit down, go back home to LA, and we're gonna figure something out. You know?
Yeah. Real quick. Yeah, I guess the Dylan Cardwell thing is pretty interesting. He's got to find some type of just a push shot. Give me a push shot. Give
The
me
free throw
something.
looks better.
Yeah.
It's a low starting
It's
point.
a low starting
Yeah. Just
Spicy
give me
take here.
something.
I think Dylan should start, and I think Maxime is more of a bench guy. I just think it makes more sense that way.
I
think
kinda like
I think
This
Dylan.
guy-
I kinda like that.
I think Dylan is more of just like if you're playing with the starters, that's a lot of talent out there. You just need a guy who's doing dirty work. Maxime clearly has more stuff to his game, and I think off the bench, you need more stuff to your game versus Dylan is just always going to be a lob threat. He can be a lob threat with the starters.
Right.
I just don't, I think he's made great impact, but I just think
Works well
if
without the
we're
ball.
trying to puzzle piece this perfectly, I think
Yeah.
in the long run too, Maxime probably projects more to be a really decent backup center than a low level
I'll
starter.
even throw out
but
here.
we'll
We're
see.
feeding your next segment here. I think Precious should start at the 5.
See, all right, that's it for these guys. That's Brenden Nunes.
Happy
that's
New
Chris
Year.
Watkins. Merry Christmas, guys. Happy holidays. We'll be talking, but thank you for spending the time. Our last round table. So we went over on time a little bit, but you two are worth it. On the other side, let's keep the conversation going. And the NBA slate, NFL slate. Which one you picking this Christmas? Al South, Sactown Sports.